Impact! Impact!
Hey everyone, how's it going? It's Matt here. I'm really excited to make this video today, giving a proper introduction to the new custom Vudoo 360. Now, I had teased the fact that I was having a new match rifle built probably like in the early winter, thereabouts. And this is it here finally. Now, it's actually not brand new. I've had it for a couple weeks. I got it at the end of January, so maybe 2.5 weeks now, and I've been very happy with it. This was built by Kenny over at Eagle Eye Shooting is his YouTube channel, but his company is Desert Precision Gunworks. Some of you actually guessed correctly when I was starting to use this. You know, obviously I posted some pictures on Instagram, and I already have some videos of me using it in matches on my YouTube channel, and some of the comments actually said, hey, that looks like a DPGunworks build, which is crazy to me. I don't know how you guys could tell just from looking at it from the side, but you guys were correct if you guessed that. Kenny did build this rifle for me, and it has been phenomenal so far. He built me an absolute hammer, and I'll talk about some of the successes I've had in the past 2.5 weeks. But just to backtrack a little bit, Kenny and I have been in communications to coordinate the release of this introduction video, because at the same time, or nearabouts the same time, he will be releasing a video. I'm not sure if it's a video series or just one video, because I haven't seen it myself, but on his channel, Eagle Eye Shooting, he's actually going to give a behind the scenes look at actually spinning up this barrel for me, which I think is going to be really cool. I expect that it'll be a little bit more technical, and he'll perhaps give reasoning behind certain choices he makes when he's building a barrel like this for a PRS style shooter like myself. And obviously in this video, I'm going to be giving my side of the story, using it as a competitor and shooting it in some matches. Now, I also want to just quickly mention that I'm not going to be going over the entire rifle setup in this video, because I plan to go over all my current match gear and the rifle setup in an upcoming video. I do want to just concentrate on the custom barreled action that Kenny built me in this particular video. But anyway, so again, I've had it for about 2.5 weeks, and in the 2 weeks, I shot back-to-back on Saturday and Sunday. So I've actually run this new Vudoo in 4 PRS rimfire matches, and I'm very thankful to be able to say that of the 4 PRS rimfire matches I shot with this rifle, I won 3 of them. So pretty incredibly, I've actually secured the maximum 300 points for the season already, going into the regionals in September. And the fact that I was able to do this so early in February is something I'm very thankful for. And it was all done with the new Vudoo 360. And going forward, I have a lot of confidence in this build from Kenny, that as long as I do my part, it will allow me to perform at the highest level of competition, which is something I'm very thankful for. So obviously Kenny built me an absolutely amazing rifle here, and we're going to go over sort of how it all came to be, because obviously I'm here in Canada and Kenny's in the States. But first, going on to the technical specifications of the barrel, this is a Shilen Select Match, and the overall finish length is 25 inches. That is something that I specified. I wanted it to be between 24 and 26 inches, and with the blank, he was able to cut a 25-inch barrel here. So that's what it was. And there is a slight taper. It's a straight taper, but it's quite heavy. It's definitely heavier than the MTU barrel I was running on my previous Vudoo. It starts at 1.2 inches at the receiver and does a straight taper to 0.955 inches is what I measured at the muzzle. So it's a pretty heavy contour, but there is a slight taper. Now, in terms of the rifling in this Shilen, you may be surprised that it's actually 1 16-inch twist, which is sort of the default or most common twist rate for a 22 LR rifle. And the reason why I say that might be surprising to some of you is because I've mentioned time and time again that I am interested in testing or trying a faster twist barrel like a 1 12 or a 1 14, but this is 1 16. I'll talk about that in a second. Perhaps in the future, I will still try and acquire a fast twist barrel for my own interest's sake, but this is a 1/16" twist. And also, interestingly enough, this is actually the 4-groove ratchet rifling from Shilen. This is something I wasn't even aware of until I got the rifle. I bore scoped it just for my own interest's sake and to sort of see Kenny's machining in the chamber and stuff. But I noticed right away there was like very few grooves. So I took a look down the bore, and sure enough, there was only 4 grooves. And doing more and more research, and then asking Kenny, obviously, turns out that this is the 4-groove ratchet rifling from Shilen. I knew nothing about it. Doing my own quick research, there's basically 3 main benefits to it from what I understand. The first one is it's supposed to deform your bullet less. It's supposed to foul slower, or take more rounds to foul, and also be easier to clean. And all 3 of these benefits, from what I can tell, is actually more beneficial for centerfire shooters. But hey, I mean, it's already proven itself that it shoots lights out for rimfire as well. But obviously, like, the bullet deformation would probably be more important for a jacketed bullet, as well as all the other things like copper buildup and stuff. But obviously they make them for rimfire barrels, and it shoots really well. So how did we come to decide on these barrel specs for my new Vudoo here? Well, the truth of the matter is I didn't decide on anything. When I was first in communications with Kenny, I did sort of have some criteria. You know, I wanted that barrel length, the slight taper, and I told him, listen, I want a 1/12" twist, yada, yada, yada. He sort of turned the table on me and said, well, listen, I know you want all these specs, but why don't you actually tell me what your expectations are for your new build? Which was really interesting because I had never really thought of it that way. It makes a lot of sense, but he basically gave me like a mini questionnaire to fill out about my expected group sizes at varying distances, the standard target sizes that I shoot at, the distances, you know, just overall my general expectations of the build. And the more we discussed, the more I realized I don't actually care about the technical specifications. He could find a barrel in a trash can, and heck, if he can spin it up to shoot lights out and consistently, that would obviously be the best case. So I ended up just saying, you know what, Kenny, you know my minimum expectations, you know the target sizes I engage, and you know how I want to use the rifle, which is obviously PRS style competition. I'm going to let you decide on the barrel, the specifications, and everything else. The only thing that I was sort of set on was the overall length and the contour. Besides that, chamber specs, rifling, twist rate, whatever, I said, Kenny, you do you. As long as it shoots the way I need it to, I don't care about specs. And this is what he built me, and honestly, I could not be happier. I'm really glad he sort of talked me out of my own mind, sort of being so caught up in the technical aspects of stuff. He's the expert at the end of the day. He knows how to build a barrel, and as long as it shoots the way I need it to shoot, I was happy to sort of give him free rein on that. Obviously, as a gunsmith, he was limited to the barrels that he had available at his inventory, but he had quite a few to select from. He mentioned he had some Lilja, some Douglas, Krieger, as well as Shilens at the time. So he picked out the Shilen for me, and I could not be happier. Some other things we discussed, for example, were my group size expectations for like 100, 200, 300, and even 400 yards, and the fact that since I'm a PRS shooter, I wanted utmost reliability in priority of certain other aspects. For example, I told him, hey, you know, if you need to cut a chamber in here, that instead of giving me 0.2 groups all day long, it gives me a 0.4 group all day long, but I'm guaranteed the most reliable extraction of my spent cartridge. I'm totally fine with that, because as a PRS shooter, I know that accuracy is definitely important, but up to a certain point. So we sort of made, not compromises, but we made decisions on exactly what was most important to me and what we wanted to prioritize in this barrel build. So the fact that it's been running so far very, very well. I've put just around 1,000 rounds, about 2 bricks of ammo through the rifle, and it's proven itself to be very reliable, which is crucial for a PRS rifle. The other thing we talked about was cold bore shift. Obviously, when you're building a bench rest type rifle, you don't really care about cold bore shift as much because they can shoot unlimited sighters, get their cold bore out of the way, you know, so it's a non-factor, and then shoot for score. In a PRS match, you might be waiting 20 to 45 minutes between your last stage and the next stage, and that first shot you take on your stage, it's critical that you don't have a cold bore shift, or you can compensate for it consistently and accurately, which most of the case you can't, because a cold bore shift can be wild at times. So I told him, if you can minimize cold bore shift in the way you chamber this thing, please do. And so far I have not noticed any cold bore shift whatsoever. And the temperatures I've been shooting this thing in, sub-zero temperatures, you know, the barrel cools down incredibly fast, and I haven't noticed any issues with cold bore shifts. Because of all the discussion Kenny and I had back and forth about my expectations of this build, he used his expertise to spin it up in the way that it would shoot the best for me, and I could not be happier. Now, I do want to mention muzzle velocities, because with a longer barrel, you, generally speaking, with standard velocity match grade ammunition for rimfires, if you go past like 16 or 18-inch barrels, you do start to lose a little bit of velocity. With my old Vudoo Ace barrel at 20 inches, in the temperatures I was shooting these matches in the past couple of weeks, I was checking my temperature charts. I would be getting anywhere from 1070 to 1075 feet per second muzzle velocity. And with this new Shilen barrel, I'm cronying in at around 1040 consistently. So that's about a 30 to 35 feet per second difference slower than my old barrel. But again, that was to be expected with the additional 5 inches of barrel length. I simply dropped my muzzle velocity down in my ballistics calculator. I used the same trued dope curve that I had for my previous Vudoo, and I haven't had to touch it yet, for now anyway. Obviously, as the temperature changes and the warmer months come here in Canada, I will do more vigorous testing, but I actually haven't even shot this new rifle really on paper to test for groups. I have just been shooting it in a match environment so far. All right, so that's basically all the technical specifications of the build. I do want to sort of take a step back and talk about my experiences with Kenny, how I even chose him in the first place, and also how the importation process worked to get this barrel action into Canada for me. So first off, I was talking to Kenny. We had been following each other's YouTube channels for quite some time. I knew who he was, obviously, and I saw his videos, and I messaged him one day. I think it was to actually ask about spinning the barrel off of my old Vudoo, and that was because I wanted a new barrel for that. I told him, hey, like, I'm having a hard time getting this barrel off. Do you have any tips? Which he actually did have a good tip. Make sure that you take out this front screw on your scope base, because that can actually press into the threads and mangle them when you go to spin your barrel off. So that's good to check. And then he sort of mentioned, you know, it'd be really cool if I could build your new Vudoo for you. And I said, yeah, you know, it sucks that you're in the US. Too bad I'm not in the US, because you can't build my rifle for me. But then, you know, I went to bed that night and it got me thinking. I was like, well, why not? Most of our rifles here in Canada that we sell are from the States, you know, some from Europe, but a lot of them are from the States. And I actually knew another shooter who recently had a rimfire build from Desert Precision in Texas. So that got me thinking, and I was like, man, if there was a way I could import this barrel action, I could get Kenny to build my new rifle. And I thought that was a really cool idea, because I know he has built other rifles for other people on YouTube, for instance, like Rick, Is Your Six Covered, or Ray at the X-Ring, Pursuit of Accuracy, Josh over there, Cyclops Joe, and Day at the Range, you know, Eli. He's built a lot of rimfire, proven rimfire builds for other channels on YouTube that they all seem to shoot lights out. So I was really interested in having him build my next Vudoo. So we got in discussions and stuff, and I reached out to my sponsor, Tom at Go Big Tactical. And luckily for me, he agreed to help with the export of the rifle out of the States to import it into Canada. So that was the exporter I used. Obviously, we wanted to make sure that we did everything by the book, so it was good for me, Kenny, and everyone else. So we did everything by the books, as you should. We got Tom's exporter to bring it to Tom, who's all the way in BC, and he shipped it to me once it was all said and done. So this could not have happened without Go Big Tactical, which is obviously my sponsor. So I just got to give a huge shout out to Tom over there. He helped me out, and he is the reason, or he is the way I got this into Canada. There are other ways. They're probably slower and more expensive. So that, I just wanted to kind of put that out there and show my appreciation to the people that deserve it. The last thing I want to touch on is, why did I go to another Vudoo 360? If I was getting a new rifle built, why didn't I try something else like a Rim-X or an Ultimatum Deuce? And that's a valid question, because I do like to try new gear. Like I I have a bunch of different scopes. I like to try, you know, different chassis and stuff. But when it comes to the rifle, as I mentioned before, reliability is very important in the discipline that I shoot. And my other 360 was running really well. It was very reliable, it fed well and everything. So in my mind, it was already a proven action. So I didn't want to change that. And also another big factor was the fact that I already had like 8 mags for it. So if I had switched to a Rim-X, which I'm not opposed to the idea, but if I had switched to the Rim-X, it would have been a little different mechanics. You know, it's a 90-degree throw. I wouldn't have spare parts for the bolt for the upkeep, and I would have to buy a whole new set of mags. And here in Canada, a Rim-X mag is like close to $200. You know, so if you want 3 of them, that's $600 right there. So I decided to just stick with the proven action, proven to myself anyway, and that's how I chose the Vudoo 360. I'm very happy with it. I will say this 360 action is a lot nicer out of the box, brand new, than my previous one was. I believe they did change the coating on the bolt. Previously, I believe it was Cerakote. Maybe they switched to nitride or something. I'm not sure exactly what, but I don't believe there's any dimensional differences in the action, but it just feels a lot better. It feels a lot smoother out of the box, and I didn't even have to have like a break-in period. It just feels fantastic. All right, lastly here, I did want to show some groups that I managed to get on my trigger cam. Now, as I mentioned before, I haven't taken this rifle out for proper testing. I haven't printed it on paper specifically to measure group sizes or do any sort of lot testing or anything like that. So the groups you're about to see were, again, through my trigger cam, but this is all morning of before a match. So this is just my normal zero verification. I obviously take a few groups at 50 yards just to verify my zero. So that's exactly what you're going to see. I didn't get to pick a calm day or whatever. This is real world, I guess, scenario, me zeroing before a match. Most of these are going to be at 50 yards. I'll put like a little description so you know what you're looking at, but I believe I did get a few 100-yard groups on my trigger cam that I will include if I can find those video files. But I generally don't shoot 100-yard groups even if the paper is out there at a match, because at a match I am more concerned about getting my 50-yard zero spot on for the day. But that's what you're going to see again in terms of the groups. In the future, I will print this thing on paper a little bit more and do some more testing, but you'll see in the footage, this thing's already shooting phenomenally with a lot of ammo that I have. Luckily, it's printing really nice tight groups consistently. Again, I'm not sure exactly the measurements of the group sizes because these are all done at matches, so it's not like I can go up to the zero board and measure my groups afterwards. But I'm gonna end the video here. I hope you guys enjoyed my little introduction of the new Vudoo. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. And if not, I'll see you in the next video. Take care, cheers.
Hey, Bird. Hey, I want to scope. What's your lead? Yeah. So it's kind of pretty much like their version of
Oh my god.
Thank you.
I'm a